A major disaster. The effective deployment of emergency response units can mean the difference between life and death. Specialist rescue teams trained to save people after natural disasters and terrorist attacks often place themselves in potentially dangerous situations. Rescue worker Doug Copp has experienced more than most. In 1985, he formed the American International Rescue Team, a specialist organization that deals with major disasters. Since it was formed, Doug estimates they have saved 125,000 people.
I've worked at pretty much every major disaster type you can think of, except a nuclear explosion. I've been to war, I've been to revolution, I've been to bombings, landslides, mudslides, rock slides, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, building collapses, plane crashes, ship sinkings, toxic clouds, firestorms, you pretty much name it,
Doug's expertise has taken him to disaster zones all over the world.
Fear has different faces, and fear for me is an analytical thing. It's not an emotional thing. The minute it becomes an emotional thing, then you better get out of there, because you're going to kill yourself and kill someone else too. I actually feel at home inside of collapsed buildings, because it's kind of like my world. I can live in there. Other people come in, they get killed.
One of the team's greatest rescues took place in August 1999 when an earthquake struck in northwestern Turkey, killing 20,000 people. Although many survived the initial devastation, they were trapped under the collapsed buildings. One of these was a young girl, found under the wreckage of a house after 4 days by Doug's team. Doug moved the rubble to her side, one piece at a time, careful not to dislodge the debris above her. How old? Huh? 11? Yeah? Okay. Okay, does the doctor want to look now? Can you pull your room?
I had made the commitment that I was going to die with her if I didn't rescue her. The slab that you see sticking down over her face was actually the second floor above her. She had 9 floors above her of concrete. The first floor above her was 1/16 of an inch over her chest. And between that and the slabs above, there was a space of 1.5 feet. And all of that was being supported by the corner edge of a piece of plywood on its edge. It was like a blade of grass holding up a 5-ton truck.
When the earthquake hit, she was lying by her bed. This saved her life by creating a protective space around her as the house caved in. She couldn't move, but was able to communicate.
Okay. You're okay now.
After 3 painstaking hours, his team had created just enough space to ease a stretcher underneath her. Very carefully, they pulled the girl out of the gap.
Okay.
Her arm was broken and she had neck and back injuries, but none were life-threatening.
So it's extremely complicated. It was extremely dangerous. And she was a very sweet, wonderful, intelligent, courageous girl, and it was just absolutely wonderful to save her life.
All right, hey! You can't imagine the amount of horror and dead bodies I've gone through in order to find that nice little girl.
In everyone's career, there comes a defining moment. For Doug, this came on September 11th, 2001, when terrorists flew 2 planes into New York's World Trade Center. 3,000 people died in the disaster that shook the world. Thousands of people managed to escape after the initial collision. Within an hour, the first tower began to collapse. It was soon followed by the second. The number of people trapped in the rubble was unknown, so Doug and the American rescue team were called in to search for survivors. The scale of the disaster dwarfed anything they had experienced before.
Immediately started looking for subterranean voids, which I knew would exist around the perimeters in the subterranean areas. I knew that there would be literally thousands of people alive in those voids.
After 2 days of relentless searching through millions of tons of rubble without success, the rescue services gained access to below, what became known as Ground Zero.
Building 893, World Trade Center in New York, going down to the parking garage. We're in quite deep. Keep pounding. If you're trying to signal us, hit 3 large hits. Can't see what's above me up there. Shining.
The operation had inherent hazards for Doug, who faced the threat of collapsing debris and sewage raining down on him.
Nasty. Below Ground Zero was another world. I would call it the darkest place on earth. I would call it the gateway to hell. It really made you feel that it was of another world, but of another world that was very sinister.
Okay, this is in the Commuter's Cafe. So as you go around, well, there's TV, there's cash register, there's the bar, and thank the Lord, no dead bodies, so everybody in here, in here got out.
There's an inch of black soot over everything, and in everything. I mean, I looked at my face and it's like, you know, I had this black soot, this black stuff. It so permeated everything of me that it coated each individual hair, and all you could see was like the pink of my tongue and the white of my eyes. What I didn't know is that it was so toxic and so poison and just filled my lungs.
The magnitude of the disaster had not only left no survivors after the first day, but it produced toxins that became a serious threat to the rescue workers' lives. Doug's health dramatically deteriorated in the aftermath of September 11th. To stay alive, he was prescribed 200 medicines a day.
Essentially, my main problem is that all my internal organs in my eyes are severely damaged from the fact that I have hundreds, if not thousands, of toxic metals and chemicals in my body. I burnt the lining of my lungs from 3 levels below Ground Zero. Also, I restricted airway syndrome, whereas for about a year it was like breathing through a straw. And also from the collapsed subways, I absorbed, I got 10 types of fungus in my lungs. For more than a year, I'd be out of breath just by eating my dinner. I couldn't walk more than 5 feet, without getting out of breath, and I'd be hyperventilating if I tried to go between 10 and 15, 20 feet.
Today, Doug's fight continues. It may take 5 years for the toxins to leave his body, but although he can no longer work at the level he could before, he has no regrets.
I always expected to die getting crushed to death inside of a collapsed building, because you can't do something that's impossible over and over and over and over and over again, without it finally biting your tail off, right? But, I thought it'd be in a third world country. I have no regrets whatsoever for anything I did. In fact, I would do it all over again without a second's hesitation. What I did was the right thing. And if God wants me to die doing the right thing, then I'll die. But that's the way I'm going to live. Period.